All right, so in this video, what we're going to do is create our scene management actions and get everything connected. But before that, I did notice something on our canvas, and you want to go ahead and check this. So check your canvas, go to your canvas, and on the right side in your inspector, go down to UI scale mode. We want to change this scale with screen size. Now that's going to change a few things with your menu. So we're just going to have to do some cleanup here and fix a couple things. So what you want to do is change that to 1920 by 1080. Okay. And what we're going to do is select the panel, make sure that's good. And then in terms of the buttons panel, we just want to go ahead and resize that what we need it to be, right? And then we just want to get that put in place. So if you want it there, you can leave it right there. All right, pretty good. All right, and so another thing we want to do is go ahead and make sure it's anchored. So right now it's on stretch. I'm going to select this and just hit center, and so it's anchored from the center. And same thing with the header, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to base it on the center or the top. It's up to you. And let's see here. So the next one we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide this. And I'm going to do the same thing with the save game panel. I'm going to select the buttons panel and just kind of resize that properly. Put that back in the center. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and select the center there for that. And the back button, I'm going to also have that based on the center. And save game also based in the middle. There we go, perfect. And the same thing with the last screen as well. Let's go ahead and bring that down. All right, perfect. Make sure that's based on the center, and this one as well can be based on the middle center. All right, great. Now, another thing we want to do is remember how we used to have the start position for our actions, right? So what we want is everything to start from the center at a X, Y, and Z at 0. So first thing I want to do is go into my in-game menu panel. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a trigger. So I'm going to go ahead and do trigger. Now this trigger is going to be on start, and we want to go ahead and do an action. Now that action, if we double click on actions, it'll take us to the prefab, not the prefab, but the object that has a component action. Go ahead and click on action. All right. And what we want to do is clear out anything there, and we want to go down to, I believe, object, and we want to do a transform, and we want the target to be a game object, and we want to put that game object here. So we want the menu panel, and we want to change its position, and we want it to make sure it's at 0, 0, 0 at the start of the game, right? So let's go ahead and double check this to make sure it works properly. So what I'm going to do is take this, make sure our trigger is set to on start. So I'm going to take my panel and just move it. Now at the start, it should start here. If not, I'll make one simple change. All right, so it doesn't. And that one simple change should be changing this from global to local. And let's try it again. Perfect, yep. So it's gonna be the local position there, okay? All right, perfect. So we're gonna do that pretty much to the other ones as well. All right, so I'm just gonna rename it. Start position trigger. and I'm gonna open up both of those. I'm gonna copy, and I'm gonna paste that there and just get that one in there. I'm gonna copy, paste, and put that in here. All right, perfect. So let's go into the canvas. I'm gonna select this action, and you wanna make sure it's not in-game menu panel for the target for this one. This one's gonna be the save game one, and then for the go to main menu panel, we want the start position object to be the main menu panel here. All right, perfect. And so I'm just gonna get rid of this one at the end. So if I leave these, if I turn this on, and I actually move this out of the way, same thing with this one. Put out game. All right, so I'm gonna hit play. They should all be in the 000 position. So go to main menu panel. Are you sure you want to go to main menu? That's gonna be there. And if I select that, turn it off underneath, it should be save game. And if I turn this off, that should be the main menu. Perfect. So it's working as it should be. All right, nice. All right, so the next thing we want to do is get these buttons working, right? So let's go ahead and get that going. So the first thing I want to do is create a scene management object. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go to canvas, and I can create it empty, and I can just go ahead and call it scene management. And this is gonna be just like what we did with the main menu. All right. And so here I use the scene management for all of my actions. Okay, so what I can do is I can right click, go to game creator, and I can simply click on actions. And so this is going to be the first action that I need. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to resume the game. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we actually need to do is call the menu. Okay, so before we actually utilize a resume, we need to call the menu. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can approach it. So the first thing we're going to need to do is think about it, right? So if you're on your keyboard and you want to hit a certain button to set active a menu, we need to do that. And so we need a trigger to do that. So what we can do is on the canvas, we can create a trigger, a game creator trigger. And this trigger can wait for a call, like a button, okay, some input, right? So we can do on key down. And when the key is down, so we can do any type of letter or number or key. So let's just say the letter M for menu. Okay, so on key down, we want it to do something, right? So I'm gonna click this button here for an action, and that's gonna create a child action here. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and double click, and it'll take me to this action. All right, perfect. So what we want to do is call this menu. We wanna call the in-game menu. We wanna make it active. So let's go ahead and set it active. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use this search here, and I'm gonna type in the word set, and if you look down, set active. Now we want to set active the main menu, okay? So we're gonna drag the in-game menu panel into there, and it's gonna set active. Now, you would think that's it, but let me go ahead and show you what's gonna actually happen. So what first thing I'm gonna do is turn off the save game panel, or make sure it's not active. And I'm gonna do the same thing to the go-to menu panel. Okay, so the only thing we're left with is menu. Now, what we wanna do is set it active. So we wanna go ahead, in this case, not like the main menu, we wanna actually set this to be off as well. So everything is completely off. Okay, all right, so we have a trigger that on key down, M, we want to set active the in-game panel. right? All right, good. All right, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do is go back into it really quick, and I'm going to make one small adjustment. I'm going to select this background, and I'm going to make it a little bit more transparent so I can see through it, okay? All right, great. So let me go ahead and turn that one off. Let's go to where our player is located. All right. And let's push the play button and see if that trigger is working. All right, so first thing is we notice that the player is not visible. And why is that? Because we do not have a camera in the scene. So let's get that going here. Our camera is not looking at the player, so it doesn't know where it is. So let's make sure that that's first set up. So I'm just gonna select the camera, position it, and I'm gonna go to game object, align with view, okay? But I'm gonna take it a step further, and I'm gonna actually make sure that the camera is working here. So I'm gonna put in the camera motor, and the camera motor is kind of defaulted to an adventure camera. So we should be able to move the player around, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. All right, perfect. So I'm gonna zoom out using the scroll wheel, and if you move the mouse around, you can rotate around the player and jump. Of course, we already know that. All right, so now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is hit the M key. And so now we have a menu pop up, and that's perfect. But we can still move the player around, and we don't want that, right? And so as you can see, I'm still controlling everything. So we have to find a way to stop that from happening. So I'm gonna hit play. And the first thing that comes to mind is changing the time scale. So let's go back to our action for calling the main menu. And in our action, we want to set the scale, okay? So I'm gonna type time scale, and we're gonna set it to 0. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and see what happens at this time. So I'm gonna hit play. All right, and we're good. So I'm gonna hit the M key. And so now we can't move or anything. Everything is frozen in time, but we can still click on buttons, and that's kind of what we're looking for, right? All right, perfect. All right, and so what we want to do now is resume from this point on. All right, so let's do that. So I'm gonna hit the play button so we can get out of this, and we're gonna get our resume button working. All right, so in our scene management, this is gonna be our first action for that. The first thing you wanna do is add time scale, because we need to set it back to 1 so we can get some movement. Next thing we wanna do is set active the in-game menu, and we want to make it inactive because we want to get rid of that menu. Okay, all right, perfect. So that's what we do. Now the question is, do we put this before that? I'm not really sure. I think it happens so fast that it's almost happening at the same time. So one before the other may not make a difference in this case. So let's go ahead and try this out. So now what I'm going to do is go to my main menu. I'm gonna go over to my buttons, and so I can see my buttons, I'm gonna double click, and let's go ahead and turn the menu on so we can see it. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to select the resume, and I'm going to add the on-click event there. And I'm going to take my action and put it right inside here. We're going to go down to the actions, and we're going to go execute. Okay. Now, of course, we want to name these things. So we want to call this the resume action. And of course, you can always name your things the way you want to. My apologies. Let's see, I've changed the wrong one. So that's gonna be this action here that needs to actually change. So let's find that button again. We're we're going to change it to the scene management action, which is why it's so important to name your action so you know what you're selecting. We're going to do resume actions. And this action is actually, we're going to just go ahead and name this now, and we're going to call this the call menu action. All right, good. All right, so our button should be good to go. So we have our resume action. We got to make sure the function is working. So make sure you go back and hit execute. All right, so ideally we should be able to resume. So let's go ahead and hit play. And of course, the first thing I need to do is actually turn our menu off. All right, so let's hit the M key. We can't move. And if we hit resume, we should be good to go. Perfect. And so now we're able to resume just like that. All right. So now that we have the resume button working, that's pretty good. Let's take a look at our save, and we want to look at our quit. All right. Okay, so for our save panel, I'm going to go ahead and activate that now so that we can see it, and I'll just go ahead and turn off the in-game, or you can leave it on, it's up to you, but ideally I just go ahead and turn it off since in this case we don't need it. And so for the save, we need to set up the buttons as well, right? And again, you go back to scene management, and what do? Right click, game creator, actions, perfect. All right, so what I'm gonna do is name this save 1, and you already know we want to do save 2, save 3, etc. So what type of actions do we need for the save? Well, click on add action, go ahead and clear this, and we want to go down to where it says save and load. Now, you have a bunch of different things here. You can save and load current profile, delete a profile, load game, load last game, and of course, save game. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save game. Let's see what it gives us. So it gives us use current profile. Now remember, in terms of the load, we're loading profiles. Loading profile 1, 2, and 3. But we're not loading the current profile. What we want to do is load a specific profile, or we want to save a specific profile. So click that off, and look at that. A number appears. We have a number to select. So let that one be 1. And of course, you probably already noticed, let this one be 2. And this one will be 3. All right. And these are the, of course, actions. So we're going to connect these to each button. All right, perfect. All right, so as you can see, I have those there. So for the first one, we're going to go ahead and do an on-click event. I'm going to drag save 1 here, and I'm going to go to actions, execute, and I'm going to the next one and do the same thing. All right, perfect. All right, so now when we hit this button, it's going to run through these particular actions and save the game. Okay, now keep this in mind. The computer is only going to do what you tell it to do. So all it's going to do is save the profile. It's not going to do anything else for you. So what you can do is, and you don't have to do it this way, but ideally in most games, when you save a game, it gives you some type of notification or some type of indication that the game was saved, and it may actually kick you out of that menu because you've already saved the game. That's a choice only you can make, but just for this video, we can do it that way. So what we're going to do is set up something pretty quick and simple. Is really once you hit save one, it's going to first select the profile one and save it. Then we want it to do something else. We can do a wait for a time for 1 second, and then we can do a set active, and we can actually turn off the save game menu panel, right? So it will close this particular panel. Now let's see here. Now we want to go ahead and make sure that that's not active. So that will do that, right? And then you also want to do time, scale, and we want to set that to 1. All right, great. Now, when you hit back, we want to basically do that. So let's see what's it going to actually do here. All right. So let's go ahead and play it out. I'm going to turn off the save game panel, and let's see how it performs. All right. So let's hit play and see what happens. Menu, save game. We didn't set up the button, did we? No, we did not. Let's set up our button. So we're going to go ahead and set up the save game panel button, so we can call that menu. And let's go ahead and do that now. So let's create in here. We're going to create another action, and we're just going to call this save game. BTN action. And you probably already know what to do. Set active, and we want to set active the save game panel. Okay. And we also want to, when we click on this, we want to get rid of the main menu. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll get rid of that. All right. So let's make sure that that's working properly. Okay. So we just go back to save game, go ahead and do our execution here with the button actions execute. All right, and let's test it out really quick. All right, so that's working properly, and I can't go back because the back button's not working yet, and that's fine. And I'll just go ahead and turn it off just to make sure everything is working the way I think. Hit play, hit your menu button, hit resume, hit the menu button, hit save. We have our save game menu. Back doesn't work yet. If we hit save, what's it do? Is it doing anything? Let's find out. So save game. We're gonna go open our save game panel. Let's take a look at that. Actions. And so what did it do? It has the use current profile. So it's going to do that. It saved it. It probably waited for a second. And it's supposed to turn off the save game panel here, and then set the time scale. So let's see what it's doing or not doing. So let's go ahead and remove time scale. And let's leave that like that and see exactly what's happening. So after we hit save game 1, it should remove that menu and bring us back to the game. And actually, let me turn that off here. And there is a little trick actually on this in-game menu thing that we can do, is where at the start of the, just like we do the start position trigger, we can also start turning them off so that we don't have to actually turn these off and on each time. But for now, I'm gonna leave that alone. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm gonna hit play here. Hit menu, save, and then let's go ahead and select the save one and see the action itself. Hit save, wait 1 second. And it looks like it is sitting on the 1 second mark. Interesting. So let's see what's going on. I'm gonna get rid of that and let's try it again. Menu, save, and perfect. All right, so that is working. So the wait creates it doesn't actually allow us to put a wait there, and that's fine. So what we want to do is now we're gonna need to get the player moving. So what do you think we're gonna need to add? Timescale. So let's go ahead and add in a timescale. So now let's try it again. Menu, save, boom. And so now we're right back there. Perfect. All right. All right. So what we want to do is go ahead and set up the rest of our save buttons, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I can see my panel. And I'm going to do the same thing. So instead of me keeping these and redoing everything each time, I'm just going to delete both of these. And I'm going to copy, duplicate both of those so that we can save a little bit of time there. I'm just going to rename them. And so all we have to do now is change the profiles of each one. So this one's going to be 2. And this one's going to be 3. Now the reason the wait didn't work is mainly because the game was currently on a time scale of 0. So the wait wasn't based on time. The game was basically frozen. So the time scale wasn't being taken in account. So there was no time to count down. If we were to put the time or the wait after the time scale, once the time scale has been set back to 1, then the wait would have actually counted down and waited for the 1 second or 2 seconds. So just keep that in mind based on where you put different actions in what order, because those things are based on execution and is executed before the other. So maybe you want to do the profile last, maybe you want to change the time scale before, whatever the case may be. Just keep that in mind. That may be an issue based on your circumstance. Okay, so I've changed each one of these. So now all we need to do is connect 2 and 3 to save button 2 and 3. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So this button says it's missing something, so we're just going to pop this in there, and we're going to do the actions and then execute. And same thing for button 3. Put this action here, and we're going to take the actions and put it in execute. All right, great. And if we want, we can also put in a debug message, and just to game saved, and then we'll just put the 1. And we'll do that for each one so that we know that that is actually happening or that it's finishing. All right, we'll do the same thing for this one. All right, great. So now we have all those buttons set up there. The next button we want to do is the back button. So let's go to Scene Management, right click, Game Creator, Action. And we're just gonna call this one Save Game Back. action. And let's go ahead and get rid of that. Now the back action is you just go ahead and click this and it should bring back the in-game menu. So what we want to do is go ahead and put that in here. So we want to do a set active. And in this case, we want to disable the save game menu or the panel. And I'm going to copy and paste that. And then I'm going to enable the in-game menu, just like so, right? So when we hit this button, this menu goes away, this menu turns back on, and we should be good there. So let's go ahead and test that. So I'm just going to minimize everything just to clean it up. And I'm going to turn this off for the initial. And I'm going to get a hit play. All right, so we're good. Our player is moving around properly. And hit the M key. We're going to hit save game, hit back. And let's find out why that's not happening. So let's hit play. And let's take a look at our scene. So we have our back menu. And we look at our buttons. Where is that panel? There it is. Of course, the back button doesn't work because we did not set it up. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that that is there. All right, and if you caught that before I did, that's actually a really good thing. So, all right, great. But that's how you debug things, right? You kind of see what's working and what's not, and if it doesn't do the thing that you want, you have an idea of what to look for. All right, so let's try it again. Make sure that works. All right, and hit the M key. Save, back, boom, menu, just like that. Perfect. We'll go back to save. Let's hit the save one. We should get a console here. Game saved, and we got a notification of that. And hit the M key. We want to make sure each one is doing it properly. Game save 2. Game save 3. Perfect. All right, so that looks good. So the game has been saved, it's in the console. Now the player, of course, is not getting a notification. This is just for you. But maybe in a future video, we can set up something where notifications are being sent out, right? All right, well, that's it for this video. For the next video, we'll go ahead and set up one of our last panels, which is going back to the main menu. I'll see you over there.